Time travel? What do you think time travel really means? Well, hello dear audience. Today's story that I'm re-uploading for you is about a rather unique take on time travel. The story revolves around an ordinary girl who ends up traveling to another world and becomes a villain. In that world, the line between good and evil blurs so much that there's hardly a true villain in the story. And just a heads up, some of the dialogue might seem confusing either because I translated it wrong or because it's genuinely complex. Please be patient and follow along. Whether they want it or not, everyone is born into and must live in this world, and I am no exception. I am living an ordinary life like everyone else. However, there are things in life that people cannot predict. And amidst that chaos, I came into this world. In this world, the crown prince and brave warriors still exist, striding proudly through the streets. This is a place where divine powers and magic coexist. To be precise, this is the world of a novel. I am Eris, the only daughter of a marquis, the fiancée of the crown prince, and the villainess who envies the heroine. The crown prince, who was once my fiancé, fell in love with the daughter of a fallen count. His deep affection finally came true, and Helena became his queen. This drove Eris, no, more accurately, an Eris consumed by envy towards Helena, insane. Blinded by jealousy, insecurity, and inferiority, Eris poisoned Helena and was ultimately executed. After Eris's death, Helena was resurrected by the priest's power. In the end, Helena lived happily ever after with the crown prince. Eris was nothing more than a tool to test the heroine. Just like every other time, even though I am the fiancé of the crown prince, I always have to witness the crown prince and Helena openly showing their affection in front of everyone. Eris Michian, you've arrived, haven't you? When Helena used honorifics to speak to me, I gently reminded her that we are friends, so there's no need to be too concerned about formalities. But when I asked Helena to pour me a cup of tea, the crown prince showed his displeasure. Didn't they teach you how to pour tea at home, my lady, or are your hands hurt? Eris replied, what are you talking about, your highness? You just said it yourself. We're friends, aren't we? Is it really against the rules to ask my friend to pour me a cup of tea? If we're strictly following the rules, it's you who would be at a disadvantage. That's right, Alex. I'm pouring it for her because we're friends. If you complain again, I won't pour tea for you anymore, Helena chimed in. Helena is such an honest and innocent girl. No matter what she does, people can never dislike her, instead, it only makes them love her more. And here we have Jason Quirg, the eldest son of the Duke's family, known as the Brave Warrior. Jason is a pitiful man because he secretly loves Helena. There's something strange though. Eris Michian was clearly childhood friends with all three of them, but she's now treated like a stranger. I enjoyed the tea very much, my lady, Eris reminded Anto Blamer. In the royal palace, you can't speak so informally to me or his highness. Consider both our status and the eyes of others. The crown prince interjected, furious. How dare you try to teach anyone a lesson in my presence? Helena tried to calm him. Your highness, don't be like that. But Helena, that girl. I'm fine, so please don't do this anymore, Helena said softly. Helena was born with a kind heart, and because of that, even when she faces misfortune, it doesn't matter. There are always people willing to sacrifice for her. This made me feel powerless. Even if I didn't like Helena, there was nothing I could do. I tried everything to return to the world where I truly lived. I've done it all, from jumping from great heights to using poison to stop my veins. I even tried stabbing myself with a knife. I've experimented with countless ways to return home. Yet, the laws of cause and effect in this world didn't allow Eris to escape what is called the predetermined storyline. When I jumped from a great height, the stable keeper saved me. He said, did the young lady trip and fall? The poison turned into an extremely effective sleeping potion. When I stabbed myself with a knife, people cried out, Doctor, please save Our Lady. A villain has stabbed Our Lady and then fled. Even though I had been stabbed by a villain, everything still followed the storyline, so my life remained intact. It's absurd. I felt so much pain. If I can't die, this all feels so pointless. Each time I tried to return home, some supernatural phenomenon would appear and undo all my efforts. If that's the case, then I have no choice but to face these supernatural occurrences head-on. And so, Eris sought out a fortune-teller, entering a room that didn't seem at all like a place for divination. The space was filled with strange, new objects. She reached out and touched a book with many odd things inside. "If I were you, young lady, I wouldn't touch those," someone said. "Because I'm worried, I came to see you. If you're not a fraud, then I probably don't need to say what my concern is, right?" "You already know," I said. "Of course, Lady Michian, or should I call you another name? Or perhaps I can call you the poor stranger, foreign lady?" "Please, follow me," she replied. Then Eris was pulled into another room. "You already know who I am, so it seems this conversation will be easier. I want to return to the place where I belong." "That's not as simple as you make it sound. And from the scent of your soul, I can tell you've tried quite a few methods already." "The scent of a soul, huh?" "Yes," she said. "You tried to tear apart your own soul. But unfortunately, this world does not allow that to happen." "Wait for me a moment," she said, as she took 2 bottles and poured them into a pot of bubbling pink liquid. "Here, please. You should know what it is, right? If it's poison, wouldn't that be good news for you?" "Wow, just drink it." "But it's really nauseating," I said. "Take this candy as well, it'll make you feel better." "Perhaps you've realized I'm not just a fortune teller," she said, flicking her fingers. A blue flame instantly appeared in her hand. "Allow me to introduce myself, I am Maddie, the last witch of this land." "A witch? This character doesn't exist in the novel. If there's a way for me to return to the world I once lived in, then tell me," I demanded. "If you're brave enough to accept death, like you've already tried many times, of course we can help." "But I'll probably need the assistance of my sisters," Maddie responded. "How long will that take?" "If we act diligently, about 15 days. But my sisters live beyond the continent, so it's not easy. I hope you understand." "And if I don't want to accept death?" I asked. "My lady, you can't ask me that. It seems you still don't understand the difference between magic and theology. Theology can create, but magic follows rules. So if you want to create new methods, ask the gods at their temple. Of course, I can't guarantee there's a way to get there." "I see. If there's any news, I'll reach out. So, please make sure to stay near a mirror often," Maddie said as I left. On my way back, I couldn't stop thinking about Maddie's true identity. This was the first time a character that didn't exist in the novel had appeared. Distracted, I wandered into a busy street and accidentally bumped into a passerby. I almost fell, but someone caught me from behind. Turning around, I recognized him immediately. Dark eyes and tan skin, it was Hybris, the priest who sacrificed his own life to resurrect Helena and who, in the future, would pray for my descent into hell. "Who are you?" His sharp gaze pierced through me like a glass window, throwing me off balance. Standing before the man who would one day become my enemy, I hesitated. Should I ask him for help? Should I tell him that I don't belong to this world? But if he found out I wasn't really Eris, he might see me as nothing more than an experiment. If the Crown Prince found out, he would certainly imprison me on some remote island, treating me like a madwoman. To avoid revealing my true identity, I put on an arrogant front. Why would a priest question the identity of a noble? Although he tried to explain, I ignored him and walked away. But as soon as I returned to the carriage, regret hit me hard. I should have used the opportunity to reveal myself to Hybris, as he was a priest, and I had almost no access to the temple. Now, I could only pray for another chance to meet him again because he might be the one to help me return home without needing to die. But instead of merely praying for a chance, it would be better to create one myself. Hybris was known to love sweets, though his special status meant he secretly restrained himself. It was thanks to Helena that he could finally indulge in his love for desserts openly, which was one of the first sparks of his unrequited love for her. At that moment, Eris recalled seeing Hybris wandering around a candy shop just the day before. Perhaps he hadn't fallen in love with Helena yet. If he had, there's no way he would help me. A bold idea suddenly flashed in my mind. I decided I had to act first. Though I had no intention of stealing Helena's love, I had no other choice. The only place to meet Hybris again would be that candy shop. However, I had to delay those plans for the moment, as I had received an invitation from His Majesty, the Emperor. He wanted to meet me to discuss Eris's coming-of-age ceremony. This was unprecedented. The reason the Emperor chose to hold Eris's coming-of-age ceremony at the palace was due to rumors that the Crown Prince despised Eris and favored Helena, a commoner by birth. From the beginning, the engagement between the Crown Prince and Eris had been nothing but a political move by the Emperor to strengthen ties with the nobility. Now, the Emperor was playing the part of a benevolent old man. But in truth, the love of a man is no more than a fleeting flower. More important than that love is the status and power that man holds. You are, after all, the one who will become Crown Princess and ascend to the position of Empress. Your children will inherit the title of Crown Prince, the Emperor said. Though his words sounded comforting, they were really a veiled threat. Eris had to become the Crown Princess, because anyone who posed a threat to the royal family's power would face danger. And that was understandable. This man was, in fact, so terrifying that he had personally killed his own son. The first Crown Prince was executed for treason without any solid evidence. The former Empress had been implicated in the same crime, but she survived only because of the unborn Crown Prince Alex that she carried at the time. Yet the Emperor had chosen the wrong person to threaten, for she no longer feared death. The Michian family no longer mattered to me anyway. Leaving with a heavy heart, I suddenly felt a hand touch me. Startled, I accidentally knocked Helena to the ground. You startled me, Lady Antablum. Seeing her hand injured, I grew concerned. Get up, you're hurt. It's fine, the Dr. Hans will treat it, and it will heal soon, she reassured me. I immediately realized my worry was pointless. Instead of worrying about Helena, I should be concerned about my own fate. If I'm not careful, I might face severe punishment for harming her. I turned and walked away, demanding that Helena use formal speech when addressing me. But we're friends, Eris, she said softly. Then let's end our friendship. I hate being friends with you. Helena looked confused. Is it because I'm close with His Highness, the Crown Prince? Eris silently thought about that wretched Crown Prince. That jerk, you can keep him. Even if he were given to me, I wouldn't want him. Who abandons their friends over a boy? There's no reason for it. Stop talking nonsense, Eris snapped. Just then, from behind, the Crown Prince grabbed her hand. You're becoming more arrogant by the day. That's a good trait for someone of high status. Now you dare to talk about status in front of me? Your Highness, we are engaged, after all, Eris said, her voice trembling. It's just an engagement. I can break it any time, the Crown Prince replied with a sneer. Already getting haughty, thinking you'll become the Crown Princess, aren't you? Helena, stop it. I was wrong, Helena intervened, trying to de-escalate the situation. Seeing the injury on Helena's hand, the Crown Prince, his voice stern, asked, Who hurt you? Immediately, a maid accused Eris of being the culprit. Without thinking, the Crown Prince, quicker with his hand than his mind, slapped Eris and declared, Since you hurt Helena first, I must leave a mark on you as well to make it fair. Eris was speechless. Fair? If that's the case, let Helena hit me back herself. She suddenly realized this was a scene she had once read in the novel. Back then, she wondered why there would be such a madman like the Crown Prince. But now, experiencing it firsthand, she understood. A bold thought flashed in her mind, should she slap the Crown Prince back? No, if she ended up in prison, it would be even harder to return to her real world. Instead of hitting him, Eris retorted, I want to marry someone from the royal family, but it certainly won't be you. Whether you want it or not, we have to marry. The same goes for me. How interesting, the Crown Prince remarked, surprised. Didn't you once say you loved me and wanted to marry me? I did love you, Eris replied calmly, but not anymore. It wasn't me who brought up this marriage, it was my father and you. If you want to break off the engagement, then submit a petition to His Majesty. Don't take out your anger on me. Eris glanced around and saw the chaos unfolding right in front of the palace. She continued, I believe this situation has already reached His Majesty's ears. With that, she decisively walked away. Her heart shattered from the unjust slap. Eris accidentally encountered Jason, who was hitching a ride. She said, if you ask, the royal family will send a carriage for you. But Jason, smiling brightly, replied, none of the royal carriages have a beautiful lady like you in them. Eris thought to herself, Jason truly is a smooth-talking ladies' man. Since childhood, Jason had been prophesied to become a dragon-slaying hero. Because of this prophecy, he endured rigorous training and was raised as a tool for slaying dragons. Wondering if there was any deeper reason for Jason's destiny, she asked out of curiosity, could you tell me more about that? Jason laughed heartily and said, that's unexpected. I thought you didn't even notice me. At least while you're telling your story, you won't be asking me trivial questions, Eris responded coolly. Heartless as ever, Jason joked, then continued, but fine, I'll tell you. He began to open up to her, ever since I learned to walk, I had to hold a sword. Not a single day of rest. For a time, I really hated my parents. But now, looking back, I think they did it to protect me. Jason went on with his story, but back then, I couldn't understand that, and I thought maybe if I disappeared, everyone would be happier. I knew I was destined to slay dragons, but I didn't know when. I always thought the dragons mentioned in the prophecy would attack my family. So, I wandered around, trying to grow stronger. Along that journey, I met many people and had valuable experiences. But the most unforgettable one was when I encountered a dragon. It was so massive that I wondered if I would ever see anything as grand as that again. The dragon said that the fear and the destiny I carried had made it grow larger. That's when I realized I was truly afraid of my own fate. I wanted to live, to escape that mission. I was discontent with everything that had happened. It seems ridiculous, but facing the dragon was the only way I could express my grievances. Maybe because I thought it would be the last time, even if I defeated the dragon, I wouldn't be able to return unscathed. Jason continued, his tone growing more contemplative, but the dragon's reaction was completely different from what I imagined. It said that the one who made the prophecy was not a god but itself. It had manipulated the priest. In the end, that prophecy was issued by the dragon itself. My life became a sacrifice, and what I saw then was not a dragon but my own mind, filled with fear of the dragon. Its massive form vanished, leaving only the dragon's heart that I had to pierce through. In the end, I stabbed through the heart of the dragon, and the earth trembled. So I lived. The story was touching, but I didn't find it particularly moving. Nevertheless, the idea of manipulating the priest to bring about the dragon's death was quite interesting. What does the law of cause and effect really mean? This might just become a clue for my journey back to my own world. After returning home, she was informed that she would have dinner tonight with Count Michian. This was quite bothersome. Throughout the meal, she was anxiously worried about being discovered, but it became pointless, as the Count only mentioned matters regarding the night selection, not paying any attention to her gestures or actions. Eris, are you really not hiring a personal knight? Don't you think just having the family knights is enough? The Count asked. Eris replied that she felt the family knights were sufficient and that she didn't need additional personal knights. The Count continued to explain about selecting knights from lesser families or commoners who would become knights for their own careers. Those of noble birth were often not chosen because, to maintain close relationships among the powers, they selected constraints. The constraints of noble families held great power. However, a knight born into nobility, who only cared about themselves, could not be entrusted with any private work. Forcing others to do things that could not be spoken of meant that they would not disclose such matters to anyone. If one was discovered to be lying, then it was the knight's responsibility to bring the liar to justice. Eris, skilled in devising wicked plans, truly needed a knight like that. But strangely, it seemed he was speaking to her rather than to Eris. No matter how she imitated her, she was not the real Eris. From the smallest habits to her preferences, even her tastes were different. Her parents, who had watched over Eris her entire life, would surely notice the discrepancies. Amid her worries, the Count approached and placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze filled with unspoken emotions. This made her feel anxious, but after the Count left, she cried into her hands, missing home. She wondered if she would ever be able to return to the real world. Her vulnerable state was noticed by Emma, a loyal maid who had served the Count's household since Eris was born. Emma remembered the lovely little girl with rosy cheeks on her angelic, fair skin. Over time, Emma had grown fond of the precious young lady. As Eris blossomed, she became increasingly beautiful. While everyone said that Helena was the most beautiful, Emma was certain they said so because they hadn't yet met Eris. With hair as dark as the night sky and skin as bright as fresh snow, her emerald green eyes sparkled like lush forests in summer, and her rosy lips made Emma feel like she could take her heart and offer it to her. Being the only daughter of one of the most powerful families in the empire, Eris was nurtured with all the finest things. But because of that, the envious, prying eyes were always upon her. Those who saw her as a thorn in their side would never treat her well. Instead, they would act even more cruelly. Emma secretly wished, if only Lady Eris could always be happy. She truly deserves that. Soon after being recognized as the fiancé of the Crown Prince, Eris began visiting the palace regularly to learn about the strict rituals and customs of the royal family. During that time, despite not getting enough sleep, she never missed a single visit to the palace. Outside, rumors began to circulate that the Crown Prince despised her. However, Eris never revealed any expression regarding that matter. Emma refrained from comforting her, knowing it would only hurt Eris's pride. That day, I happened to see the young lady, the girl who, throughout all that time, hadn't shed a single tear. Even if she was poisoned or had her fingers cut, it would never happen in front of others. His Highness the Crown Prince had no idea how hard the young lady had tried. She had always been taught that the Empress is the one who helps the Emperor, so she had to study and strive that much. Eris once thought, it's fine not to be loved, but why can't I at least be acknowledged, while he only smiles at that other girl? At that moment, Emma thought, how nice it would be if she were a witch. If only she could immediately summon a rainstorm to hide Eris's tears. In that moment, all Emma could do was pray. However, Eris at that time had been praying for her own disappearance from the world. Sometimes, miracles happen in the most unfortunate ways. After that day, Eris no longer tapped her fingers 4 times whenever she was troubled. The habit of drinking a glass of water every morning and biting her nails was gone too. Young lady. What is it? Do you want to eat something spicy again tonight? Thank you for cooking for me. Thank you? The young lady had never used those words with a servant before. Habits, posture, and even her way of speaking had changed. This was not the young lady I once knew. Who are you? If I were to ask that, I'd surely be seen as insane and immediately dismissed. Young lady, where have you gone? To be more certain, Emma tested it by asking, young lady, do you remember the time you fell off the horse when you were 6? The Crown Prince helped you up back then. Eris responded, that was when I was 16, not 6. If it were memory loss, she would have forgotten little habits, but the important memories, the young lady remembered them all. The most suspicious thing was her pretending that everything was fine. Thinking back, the young lady had been experiencing a lot of accidents recently. But what if those weren't accidents at all? That night, Emma saw Eris wandering into the forest alone. She chased after her and asked, why are you out here, young lady? It's dangerous, let's go back quickly. Eris replied, I want to go home to my mother. It was sleepwalking. That night, the young lady said strange things, like wanting to eat rice with kimchi that her mother made. At that moment, Emma finally realized this girl was not the proud, straightforward heiress she used to know, but just a lost, pitiful soul wandering in a dream she never wanted to be in. Please let me go home. I admit I realized this too late. In the end, she wondered, is there anything in this world that could hold the young lady back? After dinner with the Marquis's family, Eris thought even more about her own family. She was sure her parents had always been waiting for her to return, even though her relationship with them was rather ordinary, not particularly good, but not terrible either. Since her parents had always favored her younger brother, she had once been jealous and gradually distanced herself from them. She had thought that, if she ever wanted, she could see them any time, and so she treated her family coldly. Looking back, her younger brother had always been affectionate with their parents, and he helped with household chores more than she did. If she could meet them again, perhaps she would be more gentle toward them. The next morning, Eris had to go to the palace to select an outfit for the knight's appointment ceremony. It was quite a grand event. Although she didn't want to attend, as the fiancée of the crown prince, it was unavoidable. The weather was beautiful that day, and everyone seemed happy. But why did only she have to suffer? What exactly did I do wrong, that I have to go there and smile at the person who slapped me in the face? At that moment, the desire to flee burned within her. She ordered, "Stop the carriage." As soon as it halted, she immediately opened the door and ran as fast as she could. To avoid the knights, she took off her shoes and sprinted as fast as possible. Maybe I don't want to be caught, and I certainly don't want to be taken to the palace. In a moment of danger, a hand reached out and pulled her into hiding. A boy signaled for her to stay silent. He asked, "Are you trying to run away?" "Yes. I want to escape." Without hesitation, the boy gave a signal, and a second later, a group of children swarmed out to block the knight's path, allowing her to slip away with ease. "Now, sister, you owe me a reward, right? You saw how the kids helped you a lot, didn't you?" But she had no money. She reluctantly removed her earrings and handed them to the boy. As soon as he saw them, he recognized their value and beamed with joy. Just then, there was a knock at the door. The boy hurriedly hid her in a cupboard, reminding her to stay quiet. Thankfully, it was the boy's older brother. As soon as he entered, the brother sensed something was off and asked, "Who did you bring home?" The boy denied it, saying, "I didn't bring anyone home. The house is so dusty, who would come here?" His older brother just sighed, then turned and walked toward the cupboard. At that moment, all she could do was pray he wouldn't open it, but a second later, light flooded her face. He politely asked her to come out and demanded the boy return her earrings. However, the boy was reluctant, as it was rare for him to get something so valuable. To avoid causing strife between the brothers, she explained that the earrings were payment for the boy's help, and if he didn't accept them, it would only make things more awkward for her. Furthermore, giving him the earrings was partly a way to silence him. She suddenly realized that this encounter could be a good opportunity. "I would like you to recommend a trustworthy messenger for me." However, he bluntly refused, saying, "I do not have the capacity to meet your expectations." He then bowed and asked her to leave the house quickly. Observing how he dismissed her while maintaining respect, she thought to herself, "He's very tactful. I'm quite pleased with him." She decided to push further, saying, "If I go outside now, the knights will think I was kidnapped. Not only will you and your brother be in trouble, but so will those children. Do you really want that?" It seemed like he had no choice but to comply with her request. She told him, "Help me find where the priest Promisjus is currently located." Seeing his dissatisfaction, she stepped closer and asked, "Are you suspicious of me? If I was determined, I could kill all of you within half a day. When a cornered rat is pushed too far, don't humans fear it?" Hearing this, the younger brother was visibly shaken, but she quickly reassured him, "You look scared, huh? Don't worry, as long as you keep the secret, no one will get hurt." What surprised her even more was the older brother's subtlety. He took off his own shoes and gave them to her, even though he didn't have a spare pair. At that moment, she was resolved to leave, thinking, yes, even though I might have the determination to die, the fact that the crown prince slapped me is no small matter. Why should I run away? I might as well kill that crown prince rather than survive in this world dictated by karma. Curious, she thought, what would happen if the male lead disappeared? After returning, she decided she must meet Hybris as soon as possible to uncover clues about herself and this world. Thinking back, the meeting with Hybris, despite being a little embarrassing, felt awkward now that she was about to admit she wasn't from this world after denying it so strongly before. But really, there had been too many people around back then. Surely, the priest wouldn't ignore her plight just because of her previous escape attempt. Now, there were even more escorts accompanying her. While strolling through the palace, she spotted Hybris walking ahead. She called out loudly, but he didn't hear her due to the distance. Not wanting to miss this opportunity, she quickly ran to catch up with him, but in the grand and ornate palace, she tripped over a stone that seemingly appeared out of nowhere and fell hard to the ground. Startled, the priest turned around and asked, "Are you all right?" Perhaps because of the pain or the embarrassment, she snapped, "Do I look all right to you?" Seeing her flushed face full of frustration, he gently knelt down beside her and said, "My apologies for the inconvenience," as he reached out to heal her injury. She gasped in surprise, "Is this divine power?" "It's truly miraculous." After healing her, he said, "You should be fine now. I'll take my leave." But she hurriedly grabbed his robe and asked, "We've met before, haven't we?" "Back then, you asked me who I was." The priest nodded slightly and said, "Yes, that's correct." They stared at each other, and she noticed he couldn't take his eyes off her. It wasn't because of her beauty, but as if he was searching for something deep within her. She let go of his robe and asked, "Who are you seeing me as?" He responded, "I'm looking at the color of your soul. In this world, no one has a soul like yours." She admitted, "That's right, just as you said, I come from another world." Then she asked, "Is there any way for me to return to the place I once lived?" The priest hesitated before replying, "It's difficult for me to give you a precise answer. However, as far as I know, no one has ever survived and escaped from this world." She protested, "There has to be a way. If I could enter this world, there must be a way out." Seeing her growing agitation, the priest calmly explained, "If you aren't from this world, then the soul that originally existed in this body must have vanished long ago. Since this was the soul of someone already dead, you were able to safely enter this world. That's the law of life. In other words, if you wish to return to your original world, the soul that exists there, your original soul, must first die. But since no soul died in your place, there's no way for you to survive and return. That's why you must accept your fate and live in her stead." Feeling a sharp pain at his words, she retorted, "If I have to live someone else's destiny, I'd rather make friends with adventurers all over the world than be the fiancé of the crown prince." She continued, "I don't care, even if it's the law. I'll return, even if it costs me my life." After saying that, she turned and walked away. Priest Hybris tried to advise her, "Cherish the life that the gods have given you." She coldly replied, "My life was given to me by my parents, not by any gods," and then left, leaving Hybris standing there in stunned silence. Feeling utterly disappointed after meeting Hybris and gaining nothing useful, Eris was exhausted, almost to the point of collapse. Just then, the female lead, Helena, appeared. Helena hesitated, seeming as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Eris coldly walked past her, thinking, "Stop pretending with that fake expression." Suddenly, Helena grabbed her hand and said, "I'm sorry for what happened last time when Alex slapped you." Eris sighed, "Whoever did it should be the one to apologize. I don't need your apology." Helena continued, "I'm also sorry for not stopping the crown prince or the servant back then." Eris looked at Helena, thinking, "You're such a straightforward and sweet girl. If only you were a villain pretending to be kind, maybe it would be easier for me to hate you. Looking at Helena's hands, Eris said, "Your hands are so clean and beautiful. You're a maid in the palace, but how can your hands be more delicate than those of noble ladies?" Eris thought to herself, there's no way Helena does tasks like washing dishes, laundry, or cleaning. It's not because she's busy, but because everyone adores her and always wants to be around her. Helena reminded Eris of a university classmate, someone beautiful, kind, and adored by everyone. She liked that classmate too, but could never truly get close to them. That person was sweet but had never known hardship. Eris didn't believe that not knowing difficulty was a privilege at the time. Perhaps that's why Helena could remain so pure, untouched by the harshness of the world. Eris let go of Helena's hand and said, "I really hate people like you. Because right now, someone else is doing all the hard work for the royal maid, Helena. But I won't say I hate you just for that reason." She continued, "So you don't need to apologize to me. From now on, I will always hate you." After saying that, she turned and walked away. She knew for sure that if she lived in this world, she had to become a noble. "I'm just someone with a bad personality," she thought to herself. "Helena, you can feel free to hate me too, it's okay. Even though you've lived your whole life without ever hating anyone."